Hey folks, Joe Valley here. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Quiet Light Podcast. Today's episode is going to be an incredible exit story. We're going to talk to Keith Leimbach about his exit, his many years of journey through entrepreneurship, all the different things that he's done. Really cool stuff. Keith, welcome to the Quiet Light Podcast.
Hey Joe, I've been listening for quite a while. I can't believe I'm on your show. Nice to talk to you again.
Man, it's good to have you here. I appreciate it. Where in the world are we chatting? Where in the world are you at the moment?
Yeah, I'm in my house in the mountains in Evergreen, Colorado. Beautiful place west of Denver. And if anybody that's ever been to Evergreen, they know there's one bar in town. It's called the Little Bear, and that's a pretty famous, like, old country bar that we hang out every once in a while.
Well, based upon the background, the wooden ceiling, the big is that an elk on that chimney back there? That's
an elk taken off of Ted Turner's ranch. It's a Boone and Crockett registered animal. It's a big elk.
You're living the Colorado picture as well as in name and in vision only. So that's pretty cool, man. Well, listen, let's talk about your journey. Give the audience a little bit of background on your entrepreneurial story.
Yeah, everybody's got a story and everybody has a journey, man. I find them also fascinating. And I find that mine is one that folks, I've got my own podcast, as well. And a lot of people reach out to me and they're like, dude, I'm the exact story that you're telling me. And my story is, recovering corporate exec. I spent 3 decades in the corporate world, the last couple gigs as a public company COO, and then as a CEO in my last 2 gigs. And I left that world, the last of which was fairly violent. And there really wasn't a path back to the corporate world, at least one that I was willing to take. So I had spent so many years of my life trying to figure out where what I'm really passionate about. And I had confused 2 things. I confused being an entrepreneur with being a CEO. And I had always, for some reason, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur ever since I was in like high school. But as I, graduated, got a good job, started climbing the corporate ranks, and I confused being an entrepreneur with being a CEO. And so I spent, 25 years on a path to become a CEO. And I got there. I don't think I'm very freaking good at it. And ended up leaving the corporate world. And it gave me a chance to then kind of rethink, well, what was I really trying to do? And what I was really trying to do was to be an entrepreneur. And I think so many folks like that I talk to, they just find their corporate life to be unfulfilling. And that's my story. In lots of successes, man, I took 2 companies, helped take 2 companies public, one in 1999 and one in 2012. We sold one to Oracle in 2008 for $17 billion. And you have those types of financial success. It's not very fulfilling, man. It's just, this is something you put on the highlight reel. Yeah. But selling, the entrepreneur journey and then building a company to the point where I could sell it and have a pretty magnificent exit, one that was better than any of my corporate exits, financially. Just so much more fulfilling, man. Just so much more interesting and rich in its own way.
Let's do the dates here. You and I kept putting off recording this podcast because your exit took a little longer. The company that you just sold that gave you more financial benefit, as you just said, than all of your years as a CEO and COO. How long did you operate that business? When did you launch it? And well, I guess we'll figure out the math. When did you launch it?
Yeah, so I bought it from you guys, as you know, and
right,
your listeners might not, man. I got the listing from Quiet Light, and I tell so many people
that makes you an acquisition entrepreneur. Walker would be very proud. You bought it, you built it, and you exited it. I'm sorry to interrupt there. Anytime buying a business comes up, I have to give Walker Deibel props for his book. What's the name of his book? Buy Then Build. That's right.
There's so many opportunities out there to do that. And people, particularly coming from the corporate background, may have so many skills, like the stuff you actually learn that you can apply to some of these smaller businesses. But I bought it in August of 2019. And I got the listing from Chuck in June of 2019. and it took us 2 months to close. And, it was a fairly little acquisition. I paid 400 and change for the business, and just an industry that I really liked. Yeah. And then fast forward 2 years, just short of 2 years, in July of this past year, so July of 2021, I was talking to a customer of mine, and I said I might be in a position later this year where I would sell this business, and wanted them to know, just out of courtesy, but also to see if they were interested maybe in acquiring the business. And so shortly thereafter, probably close to the 2-year anniversary of me purchasing the business, I was in contract to sell it to them. And then, the dates that you're talking about, man. So I think it was actually the first week of September when we got to kind of a verbal. We put it into an LOI by the end of September, and then spent October, November, and December going through due diligence. And just, there's a lot of steps in the process, as man, and it took us 3 months to get through it.
Yeah. And it's a big company that is buying. So they have, that bought it. And so they have different processes in place that take a lot longer, right?
They do, man. Yeah, it's for sure.
It's not like selling a $1 million business to somebody that is, it's their first purchase or second or third or fourth or fifth. It's when there's a lot of money behind it, private and public. And some of the aggregators are getting to be this way. There's so much money coming in that they're requiring a deeper dive into every aspect of the business before closing the deal. And some of them are taking quite a bit longer, especially the larger ones. All right. So you bought it for 400 grand. We're not going to talk about the business itself. We're not going to say how much you sold it for, but ballpark, can you tell us what you did in 24 months in terms of growth?
Yeah. Well, let me tell you a couple of things, Joe, man, because I wouldn't want to be listening to this and not really know, like, what's the freaking punchline. And so I can tell you that it's an 8-figure exit, and
$400,000. And in 24 months, you got an 8-figure
you couldn't
exit.
do it with Bitcoin. That's what makes
Christ.
me the happiest. Like, I actually had to put some effort into this it wasn't like as simple as just buying Bitcoin. And
I love the punchline part of it, because now people are really going to listen. So thank you for that. That's holy cow. That's incredible.
Yeah, man. So there's two really important parts of that kind of valuation. One is what you achieve just through, multiples of revenue growth. Like, how many times can you make the business bigger? And I was into the business, a year, less than a year. And it was already 10x what the revenue and earnings of what it had done, before I'd acquired it. And we can talk about how we did that. And then, another massive set of growth in the second year on the stage of the exit. But so there's the revenue piece. Like, if you grew a business, if you did $1 in revenue and all of a sudden you're doing $10 in revenue, that increases what the company's worth, obviously, by 10x, roughly. But then when you get to a certain level of earnings, man, you kick into a new tier of valuation, like multiples of earning. And so you get this 2x, thing going on, the two factors that come together that really give you a massive growth multiple against, what you buy something for. And that's, it's why I advocate so much, like, buying a business, at least evaluating these opportunities out there, because this is real, man. I'm not making this stuff up. And now I dress like, what's his name, with a hoodie on, like, what? 2 years later, that's some funny stuff.
Are you talking about Zuckerberg? Or are you talking about the character from Billions on HBO? Because he always wears a hoodie.
I'd rather be the dude from Billions, but Zuckerberg is who I was thinking of. But listen, I didn't make any kind of Zuckerberg money. I'm not.
It's incredible, though. Now,
I join your show with the hoodie. I'll say that.
Did you go from 400,000 to 4 million in 12 months because you're just that damn smart? Did you hire that? Do you have this? Yes. He says yes with confidence. Yeah, of course.
I'm just kidding you. I'm not smart at all. I'm the biggest knucklehead in the world. Listen, there's, when I bought this company, it was from, the founder had built a really, really beautiful product and, just absolutely hated marketing. And so when I bought the company, I started talking to our customers. I realized, oh yeah, man, it's a great product. It's just not enough customers know about it. And so we started an awareness campaign, and that really took off. And as we talked to customers, I said at first it was, just me our bookkeeper and like order administrator, a really fabulous lady. And she had her own business, and this thing was so small, she kind of did it as a part-time hustle. Just, I paid her $50 an hour or something to help me out. And then I did a search to bring on a good digital marketing firm. And we started to expand the reach, and we were talking to more customers, and then customers just started asking us for stuff like, hey, I love your product, but I need, XYZ that goes with it. And so then we would start to put those products together. And then it was just a compounding effect. We're just listening to what it is that people want. And I was fortunate enough to have a really, really great marketing resource that it turns out lives really close to me. And I did a global search for like a digital marketing firm. I was really interested in getting a great firm. It turns out the guy's like a 3-iron from my house. It really turned out to be a great fit. Wow. And then as we grew, we really needed some operational support to be able to handle the volume of orders and handle the order, all that kind of stuff, man. And so I brought a really smart guy on to run our day-to-day operations. And then he ended up building up a team over time as well. But
was that smart guy in-house or remote?
So he was a contractor at first. And the first smart guy, that was a digital marketing guy. I hired him. He had a digital marketing firm. He ended up liking the business so much, he shut down his digital marketing firm and became basically my leader of all things digital. And then because he's a really capable guy, I also asked him to help me with all new product development. And then the second really smart guy helped put all the day-to-day operations in place so that we could scale on a real stable foundation, as opposed to, some rickety ladder that you find out, holy crap, like what am I doing here, man?
Yeah. I'm curious, for the two people that you hired there, did you give them equity? Did you give them upside? Were they incentivized in that way, or did they just love what they did and help grow the business so you could eventually exit?
It's the latter, man. They, anybody, if you give anybody equity, they're gonna, I think they're gonna appreciate it. I just have always been in the position where I own a little piece of a big company.
Yeah.
And I never found it that motivating, right? When there were big financial events like IPOs or sales of the business or whatever, that created value around those things, it was interesting, but it was never a motivating factor. It was more of a reward. And I figure I can always provide a reward at the end, as opposed to try to trick myself into thinking I'm motivating people, because I'm not.
Yeah.
I also think some of these motivation things are I find them actually insulting, because if you tell someone, listen, man, I'm going to pay you more if you're able to produce X, Y, or Z, that's basically saying I want you to change your behaviors and somehow do something differently than you would have done otherwise, because I've now put this new carrot out in front of you. I think people look at you cross-eyed like, dude, I've been working my ass off. It doesn't matter what kind of carrot you put out there. I'm working hard for you. And that's why I find it almost insulting to have that kind of rewards-based thing. I'd rather have a recognition at the end of it to say, listen, man, all you guys kicked ass and worked hard. And as a result, there's my dog saying hello to you, Joe. As a result, I'm gonna provide this kind of benefit for you as a thank you, as opposed to some artificial motivator on the front end of it.
No, I appreciate that. And given, that you lived in the world with, as a COO and CEO, you had a lot of people that you had to motivate, and you found the right way to do it. So I asked because I was curious, not because I thought equity was the only way to go. So appreciate that. How did they feel when you broke the news to them that you were under letter of intent, or at what point did you break the news to them?
When I had cash wired into my account, then I got together with my team and let them know, one-on-one, so I could have a good discussion with them individually about what had happened, what the current status, so the questions that go through people's minds, just like you would expect, like, what? So, okay, good for you, Keith. So you just made a whole bunch of money. Like, do I still have a job?
Yep.
Is my job changed? Is the office moving to a different place? And because I sold this to a strategic customer of mine, all of whom my employees know super well, I think there was a lot of, not relief, because relief implies that, they had been stressed out about where it was going. They didn't even know it was going anywhere at all.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of satisfaction that, they know this company is a super great company. They know it to be a great company. This is a company that, is, of course, quite a bit bigger than me. And so employees get benefits and employees get 401k and get to be associated with a bigger organization. They get the job security that, you're working for some dinky little company. You don't know whether it's going up or down. Right. And so I think people were really, really excited about that news that they were joining another place, as opposed to like, listen, man, if I'd sold this to some search fund guy or some private equity, dude that had some knucklehead that, was going to come in and run the thing, and I'm introducing these guys to their new 26-year-old boss, I would not have had the same reaction with them.
Yeah. So your buyer was strategic. So they were comfortable with your buyer. That makes sense. Because your buyer was strategic, do you think you got a bump in valuation because of that?
Yeah, I think so, man, because, they understand the industry and they understand obviously the product because they use it, and wanted to make sure that it didn't fall into the wrong hands, right? Because then all of a sudden maybe the product production goes down the drain, and it's a critical element of what they build. And plus, in terms of their own strategic direction, it was aligned with what they were trying to do. So, I had a couple of things working in my favor that certainly contributed to being able to support a valuation that I wanted to get out of the business.
Did you tell them that your price, or did you wait till they made you an offer?
I told them my price, and everybody will tell you not to do that. Here's the way the conversation went. It probably always goes like this, but I know these guys, and I might've played it differently had I not known them. But, we got on a call, and we walked through the financials and what I aspired to do. And they talked a little bit about what they were trying to do. And then it came down, all right, man, so what do you want for it? And I said, I don't know. What do you think it's worth? It's the same conversation you probably hear 1,000 times.
I don't know. You go first. No.
Yeah.
You go first.
And they said to me, hey, I know how this is going to go, man. You can't offend us. So just tell us what you think is worth, and we'll tell you whether we think we can pay that.
Yeah.
And I did. And they said, listen, give us through the end of the weekend or whatever it was, and we'll get back to you with a formal offer. And now we know what you want. We'll take that into account, basically.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, man, when I was a year ago, so last January, February, I had a company reach out to me, private equity firm, and they were trying to do a roll up in this industry, and they had some assets already in the industry, and they were looking for a platform to roll them into. And I probably wasn't big enough to be the platform company, but I was big enough to be an entity rolled in. And so, we started with a similar type of conversation, and they said, hey, what do you want for it? And in this case, I'll tell you, because the deal didn't go through, but I told them I wanted $12 million, and this was a year prior. And they said, listen, if the financials support it, we think that's based on what you've shared with us, probably a reasonable multiple. And whether we're paying a higher multiple against trailing 12 months or a smaller multiple against, projected earnings, we think that's probably a fair number. And one of the things that really helped me get through this last exit was having this discussion with this other private equity firm. It was actually a family office many months prior, because as we went through the financials, what I started to discover is, holy crap, man, I've got some stuff. I look at the revenue, I look at the gross profit, and then I look to see what the bottom line is. I'm not spending a whole lot of time on the line items. I kind of thought my bookkeeper was keeping it straight. But one of my really great lessons was, as I went through the process, I realized that there were some holes in my financials, and I needed to go back and fill those holes so that I would be in a position to really have a sound story for the exit that would ultimately take place. Mm-hmm. And so this was kind of my, a year ago, this was kind of my, it was like my trial deal. I'm telling my wife, like, I don't think this deal is ever going to go through, but what it's doing is allowing me to get really smart about what I need to have in place in order to get the right deal done eventually. And I didn't think that deal was going to happen so close on the heels of wrapping this other one up. But man, I tell people now, and one of the key lessons I tell your listeners, man, about this is, you absolutely have to know your financials, and they have to be rock solid. I know you tell everybody the same thing. Yeah. But dude, I come from a long corporate background. I thought my financials were freaking hard as nails. And then I got into it, and I realized, we're putting inventory in our operating costs as opposed to in the balance sheet. And for people that are listening and don't know what I just said, like that's like Charlie Brown's teachers talk, then you need to go get yourself a really, really great financial guy that can put, not a bookkeeper, man. I'm talking about a really, really sound financial guy. And I'll hook anybody up with the guy I use, because he was fabulous. Then he went back through the books and we cleaned some stuff up. But he also told me, hey, listen, do you know that, shipping as a percentage of sales and as an overall percentage of your total costs, like it's doing this on you at a rate that I really hadn't been keeping track of.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I knew how to go back and adjust pricing, and we ended up charging customers for shipping and a whole bunch of other things that totally changed the trajectory of our earnings profile.
Wow.
And man, that's, you hear it, dude, this almost sounds like I don't even want to listen to you. You're going to tell me to know my
listen to them, people. I mean, I tell people this all the time. I mean, you listen to the podcast. It's all about the math and the numbers to begin with. If you don't have a good handle on it, you're screwed, right?
Yeah.
And we were talking about a mastermind person. I don't want to use this person's name, but before I hit record, but I was at an event where somebody was showing their financials. This guy that runs the event always shares his numbers, and he discovered that his shipping costs went up. He was being billed wrong, and it was going to, annualized, it was going to be about $1 million.
Yeah.
He ended
man.
up selling his business a couple years later for an 8-time multiple. So he would have lost $8 million in the sale, plus $1 million every year if he hadn't done what you're talking about. Pay attention to your numbers and get a good financial person to point out what's happening in there.
If like that guy, man, I was telling you this earlier too, man. Like I don't know if it's the will or the energy or the mental capacity anymore, man. But I don't want to go through a report, or I don't want to go through my P&L and try to figure all this crap out. Like I want someone that's really, really capable, that comes from a corporate background, that knows what a financial analyst is looking for and does that. And that's exactly what my buddy's name's Dan Scott, what Dan ended up coming in and doing. And he's like, dude, like, what's going on with shipping? Like, what are you doing? You're going to, you can't eat this stuff anymore, dude. Your margins have gone from 22% down to 9%. What are you doing?
What does Dan Scott call himself? Is he a fractional CFO? What is his, what would he be? How would you put a label on him?
I think a fractional CFO is there. I consider him my CFO.
Okay.
And so I think that's the way people should think about that role, because you need a bookkeeper, man. You need somebody that can put the data into QuickBooks or NetSuite or whatever you're running. But you got to have a CFO, man, that is looking at this stuff and making sense of it, and then reporting it back to you and helping you change the direction of so many things, whether it's product pricing or shipping costs or where you're manufacturing and all those types of things. That's pretty cerebral stuff. And I don't really expect my bookkeeper to give me that kind of, I'm not paying my bookkeeper to do that.
They're just,
and so that means I was either having to do it, or I needed someone like Dan to come in and that's why I brought him in as my kind of outsourced fractional CFO. And dude, he's worth every dime.
Let's just get it out there right now as people are listening. Dan, what was his last name? Scott? Is that what you said?
Dan Scott. Yeah. You can reach him at dscott@lscott.com. And if I had my phone sitting here with me, I would
dscott@lscott.com
at alscott.com.
Okay. 1 T or 2 in Scott.
Yeah. What's that?
1 T or 2 in Scott?
Two T's in Scott.
All right. alscott.com. Did I get that?
Yeah.
Right?
dscott@alscott.com.
Cool.
Yeah.
Can we go back to the beginning for a minute? I'm just going back to the beginning. I'm not asking, I guess. I'm just going there. So
go there.
We're going back to the beginning, Keith. When you went from, 400,000, well, you bought it for 400,000, then you 10 times the revenue. What percentage of the business when you bought it was, direct consumer sales on your own site versus Amazon?
Yeah. So just to be clear, it was 10x of sales in the first few months of owning the business. And then obviously grew it very significantly.
Was this before the digital guy, or you did that on your own?
No, I was with the digital guy. My first move was to hire his firm. So I bought the business in August, and by October I was hooked up with the digital marketing firm. And then, then we were moving fast and seeing a lot of growth. And this is all, I hear lots of folks, they ask me like, man, oh, so you benefited from the pandemic because everybody started moving to this, into this sector and you had there's just a lot of growth in that industry, man. And that's true. I'm sure I did benefit a bit, but we saw explosive growth before there was the first case of COVID ever announced. And that's based on reach. Yeah. And the answer to your question, Joe, is it's all through the website. It's all, we sold to, we still do today. We just do it at a much grander scale, both geographically and absolute numbers. But we sell retail and we also sell wholesale. And so there are some people that use our parts to build into vehicles that they're creating. And then there's also a DIY community. And so that's a retail buy right through our website. And our website was organized really well, structured well. It had good brands, good branding to it. But it was just on a crummy platform, man. I think it was on Squarespace or something. Mm-hmm. So we ended up moving it to Equid, and then that's a crap platform, at least for our application. And then, we moved to the obvious and put it on Shopify, and then we're able to. And one of the challenges, you add product, man, you got to have a database behind you that you can add those products into and then be able to put them out on the website, relatively quickly.
And you'd never done that before. You were the CEO and CEO. This isn't a skill set that you had. Did your digital hire do all of that for you? Or did you just grind your way through learning how to do it?
No freaking way, man. I can't learn anything at this point, but not because I know everything, because I can't absorb it anymore, Joe.
I know. Man. We were talking before I hit record, folks. We're just tired.
Just tired, man.
We don't want to learn anything. Just tell us what we need to look at. Tell us what to do.
But I hear something I think is really important. I tell a lot of folks this. Don't spend your time on the things that are just sucking the life out of you. Like for me to try to figure out how to build a Shopify site and do digital marketing and figure out, dude, I don't even have a Facebook account. Like I don't even know what that is. And like for me to go figure that out would have sucked all the energy out of it. No fun at all.
Yeah.
But I could go pay a guy who's really freaking great at it. It's absolutely genius mind around that stuff and help me with branding and all that kind of stuff. That's great. That's what I like to do. I like to know what I need and then find really, really great people to go solve for that stuff. And it's same with, you talk about the financials. Like I could have never fixed that, man. I've never logged into QuickBooks in my life. And for me to go in there and try to figure out like all the stuff that was broken in there, I'd go hire a really, really genius guy that does that for a living. And that, part of Dan's deep skill set from, CFO down to like, let me go check how the bookkeeper set this up, man. And we'll go clean things up.
I'm going to reach out to Dan myself. We
should.
We grew well over 100% in 2021 from 2020. And with that, as you know, with that kind of growth, there's all sorts of expenses that rise and they add up. You don't pay attention to them. And there's different things that you can do that CFO will point out to you and say, okay, stop focusing on that. Let's focus on this because your margins are incredible. Did he do a lot of that for you as well?
Yeah, he did all that, man. That's exact conversation, right? So sure, I could go get the monthly data from the bookkeeper and put it all in a spreadsheet in front of me and observe the trends. And intellectually, I think I've got the capacity to do that. But like, just from an attention perspective and what I like to do, I spend so much of my time thinking about what I like to do and also what I don't like to do. So I don't find myself in this trap around doing stuff that I don't like, because then it sucks the energy out of me. And then I don't want to do any of it anymore.
Were you always this way?
I spend my time, getting people to do this stuff while I'm over here spending my time doing the things that I like.
Well, you've learned to delegate, which is something, most entrepreneurs don't do very well. They're like full control. They dig into it. They've got that I can do that syndrome and they just take it on. And then they don't enjoy it. It sucks the life out of them. They woke up emotionally toast, burned out, and they say, how the hell do I get out of this thing?
Yeah, and then I think that's true, man. Yeah.
So have you always been good at delegating, or is this from your COO and CEO role?
Dude, I'm so happy to give someone else work that I'm supposed to do. I'm awesome at delegating.
You're just great at it. All right, just pass that.
I don't know, man. Probably too much so, but I would say that even though I'm always making fun of my corporate buddies for like putting up with another decade of crap in their unfulfilling lives. I think one of the things that, we develop great skills because we manage great big, things, whether they're big projects or big teams or big companies or whatever they are. And as part of moving up the stair steps of the corporate ladder, there's this great book. It's called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And it's about the evolution of skills. And, whether I was good at my jobs or not, I was always at least aware of what skills I needed to be good or to not be good in those jobs. And that's helped me understand how to delegate things. And I think in some cases, it's helped me, in some cases, right. I've built awful teams, and I've been, I'm sure the world's worst freaking boss at times. Now, other people tell you like I'm the world's greatest boss, but I would tell you that I learned to delegate. And by delegating, I mean, I really just empower people and put it on their lap, tell them, listen, man, we're living by the results of what you do. I'll be involved in any step in the process that you want guidance, and you're not operating under a tightrope with no safety net. Like, as long as we're working together in the same direction and you're telling me what's going on, like I'll provide all the safety net you can. And so I think I bring that into smaller business to say, listen, man, if you're my digital marketing guy, you go do this. Like, let's review along the way, so we don't go do 8 weeks worth of work and then come back and it's not aligned with what I thought. But anyway, I think I'm okay at empowering people.
It seems like you are. You just, the numbers speak for itself, and it's a quite a big number as well. What about the hard lessons? People talk about the mistakes they made. I don't know how many you might have made in the last 24 to 36 months. It all sounds pretty rosy, but are there any lessons in there that you learned that you want to help other people avoid?
Well, I'll tell you from doing things right and from doing things wrong. My lesson around the financials is from doing it wrong, man. Yeah. I thinking that I could I'm used to having a CFO, right? And everything's going to the auditors, and I got to present it from the board. And so like this stuff's all tied together. And I just carried that with me, and I thought this stuff would be too. And it wasn't. I looked at the top line of gross profit and what the cash flow looked like, and thought I was doing okay. And it turns out that I wasn't, because I really hadn't been on top of the financials. And so, that's a painful lesson to go get that corrected. And it was an expensive lesson to get it corrected. The other thing I'll tell you is, if you're looking on how to maximize your valuation, one of the really important things to do is to figure out where your risks are and what your single points of failure. And so we do a lot of contract manufacturing. And when I bought the business, we had contract manufacturing solely in the Pacific Northwest. And, the Pacific Northwest has struggled in the last couple of years with some pretty unstable times, right? There's forests on fire, and there's people burning down buildings and riots, all kinds of stuff going on, man. And it impacts the labor market, but then impacts your ability to get stuff manufactured. And so for me, I had a single point of failure that, like, if I lost my manufacturing capability there, I'm done. Like, I don't have anything to sell. And I realized if I was ever going to sell the business at that point, really with no plan to sell it, I just knew I need to de-risk it. And so people need to be looking for where are my single points of failure, and how do I put something else in place? And for me, it's just as simple as replicating all the manufacturing capabilities in another metro area that had, different fault lines and different geopolitical, kind of orientation, so that I was balanced there. And so we have duplicate production, in some case triplicate production for the parts that we make. And as I was in a position to start selling the company, this turned out to be a really, really important point. They're like, holy crap, the things that we're thinking of that could stop your business, you've put a plan in place to navigate around those, man. So I think being able to de-risk the business is pretty darn important.
It's the first pillar we talk about all the time, right? Risk, growth, transferability, documentation. You got to have that documentation. If you don't have it, you're not selling your business. But the risk, these are the non-financial things that I think sway that multiple really, really high or really low. And people don't pay enough attention to them. They just say, what multiple are things selling for? Well, do you have one really SKU that generates 80% of your business?
Yeah.
But that's really important stuff.
Well, listen, Matt, that's a really real conversation. Like, all of a sudden you're on a conversation with a buyer, and they say, hey, buyers are smart. They're like, hey, here's a risk you got in your business. What are you doing about it? Yep. And when the answer is, I just replicated production in 3 places to make that risk go away, so does the problem. But if I hadn't been able to say that, the conversation that happens after the one with me on the internal meeting is, all right, guys, what are we going to do about this giant risk? I still like the business, but now we've got to go spend an enormous amount of intellectual capital and human power to go like, how are we going to go? We don't even know what the production thing is. Like, how are we going to go replicate that?
Yeah.
And sort of take that off the table. So it's not a thing, because that would, like you just said, man, that's have a huge impact on your valuation.
Right? Yeah.
When those kinds of things are buttoned up, they also realize all the things that we don't know to ask. I bet they're buttoned up too, man, because the things he's told us our problems are legit, and the things that we've fixed, we can verify it. And then as part of the due diligence, obviously the buyer's going to come out and inspect all this stuff anyway, man. So,
yeah,
you're always playing with both hands on the table. You're not gonna pull the wool over any buyer's eyes that,
no, they're going to dig deep. If you lied, cheated, or stole, or just took shortcuts, they're going to find out, and your deal's going to fall apart, and you're going to be miserable because you were that close to a life-changing number.
Dude, that's another thing, man. There's I'm on the board of another company, and we were in due diligence at the same time as my deal, and that deal fell apart. And I'm watching this other deal fall apart and watching mine. I'm like, you know what? These things are so fragile, man, that you could say something in the wrong tone and the buyer interprets it as some sort of risk. And then all of a sudden, the thing's over, and you're like, oh, it's that close. Holy crap.
That's the benefit. You're old enough and wise enough and seasoned enough. You did it on your own, but if you've never been through it before, if you've never been a CEO of a company, taking companies public, when you get 2 weeks from closing, the biggest job of somebody in my position is to manage your emotions and expectations,
right?
Because everything falls off the rails at some point or another. And you got to make sure that you don't, drop your pants just to get the deal done, so to speak. Right. I hate to offend anybody there, but that's the way it is.
Because the other thing that happens, you sign an LOI, right? You agree to what the deal terms are going to be, and then you start due diligence. And as you go through due diligence and you find these things that create risk or uncertainty, you end up in a retrade, man. And a retrade is when they come back and say, "Hey, I wanted to pay you 30 million, but now I'm going to pay you 18, right?" And then you're like, or I was going to give you 6, and now you're going to get 2, or like whatever, dude. And to balance that in your brain without losing your mind.
Yeah.
You can go back and fix it yourself, and then a year later come back into the market and hope to get those numbers. But that's
hard. That's a hard path. That's emotionally tough, devastating. Man. You're so close. And then you got to pick up your pants and do it all over again for another year, and then go through the process of finding another buyer, and who knows what the market's going to be like. So the lesson is shore up your weaknesses, make sure you're building a great business for a great buyer to take over.
Yeah, man, show up your weakness, but also really, you got to really put a giant spotlight on your strengths. And so one of the things that I did right out of the gate was to patent this product, and had some challenges with it because it has to be defensible, but ended up, man, I hired a legal firm that, specialize in patents. These are like New York guys, it costs so much freaking money. Like you convinced you went down the wrong career. Like, oh my gosh, it's so expensive. But in this case, you so much get what you pay for. And I started down the path with, some discount patent operation. And, what I got was, what was going to look like a discounted patent. And then I was talking to a buddy of mine who's way more sophisticated than me and runs a really massive company. He's like, dude, let me hook you up with my patent guys, because they are legit, and you do not want to run this path any other way than, straight up the middle with the most expensive guys you can find. And I happen to know who they are. And so he introduced me, and my opportunity was real enough that they were like, yeah, we definitely want to help you out. And we, through their, they know how to do this, man. And so not only did we get a patent that was granted, but we did it in record time. They were able to accelerate the process. And you hear a lot of people say, gosh, it's a patent, brother, 3-5 years. And maybe it does, but we got ours done in, I think 9 months.
That's incredible. Utility or design?
What's that?
Utility patent or design patent?
This is a utility patent.
9 months. And the product was already out there in the market. You can still get a patent even if it's already out there in the market?
Yeah. So if it's been in the public domain for over a year, you can't. but there's lots of things you can do to product. Like as we were evolving our product, it wasn't the same thing that was in the public domain.
Okay.
We were able to add some really meaningful stuff to it. And the combination of those things then became the patentable entity. And you talk about value accelerators and valuation accelerators, having a product that's defensible, like somebody else starts making it, you send them a cease and desist, and they can decide if they want to keep making it, but they do it now at the risk that they owe you since they were notified.
Yep.
And, little players for the most part, fold and like, I'm not trying to cause a problem. And bigger players, patent fight is a $2 million undertaking. And I didn't want to go spend $2 million of my own dollars. But now that I have been acquired by a much bigger company, they're like, hell yeah, man, we're going to, we will absolutely go defend the IP that we just paid for. And they paid for it handsomely. And that is a serious, you got to have some way to build defensibility. And you hear all these MBA nerds talking about moats and stuff. And that's right, man. You got to have some way to defend what it is, because, I was looking at another really cool product company recently as something maybe to acquire. And they built the defensibility by being a really great brand around this product, but the product you can buy from 100 different places, but they've got a really cool brand, and it's a funner experience, I guess. But man, if you want to build a brand, now you're talking about, that too, is freaking millions and millions of dollars. That's a super expensive proposition.
Yeah.
So if you got something that you can patent, you should patent it, and you should spend absolutely as much money as you can that you are uncomfortable with the expense. Because first of all, it's a balance sheet item. It doesn't hit OpEx. And so it's not like it's going to hurt your earnings. It's going to hurt your cash flow, but it's not going to hurt your earnings. And then at the end of this, you have created real value of something that people can't replicate when you're successful selling it.
No doubt. No doubt. Have you ever heard me talk about the fifth pillar, Keith? When I talk about the 4 pillars on the podcast, just say no if the answer is no.
Yeah, I don't think so, man. I read your book, but I can't remember what the 5th one is.
So the 5th pillar is that, the mortar that holds everything together. It's a little person on top. That's you. Like you sew up the 5th pillar very, very well. You got to be likable. You got to be trustworthy. You got to be experienced. You got to be somebody that you want to do business with. And that isn't saying all sorts of stupid stuff online. You don't even have Facebook accounts. It's kind of hard to say something stupid. You might do it at the bar.
Yeah, trust me, man. It's a good thing I don't.
Yeah, you might say it to a buddy, but you don't say it online, right? I've seen deals fall apart because of what people say online. They just take a hard stance on one thing or another, and the person that's buying the business is on the opposite side. So you're that 5th pillar, epitome of a 5th pillar. You lock it all in. These people had a great deal of confidence in you. You made the business more defensible, a better business for them to buy. You grew it like crazy. You had a great team. You thought about, both exiting and making it as good of a business for the others as well. So good on you. It's pretty impressive all around.
Yeah. Thanks, man. I tell you what, it's been a really, fascinating for sure. Certainly makes for great story time. But in terms of like finding something that's fulfilling and meaningful that just doesn't end up on the highlight reel, and you couldn't really care less one way or the other, but they're impressive stats. Like for me, this is a really meaningful. It's a really fulfilling thing, and part of the fulfilling part of it is, and it's why I put my podcast together, and I appreciate you being on it. It is because I can share this story, and if I can give someone just a little bit of confidence that their experience lends itself to helping them be successful on a venture that they will find more fulfilling in their own life, then man, I just gave that person a little bit of a nudge and maybe enough that they will go out and find an opportunity that's out there for sale and use their mad skills to turn it into something that's worth a whole lot of money. And it might be something they want to run and pass on to the next generation and generate, generational wealth, which is cool. Or it might be something that, they just want to take the money off the table, and a couple of years later, or 3 or 4 or 10, whatever it is, sell it, and then basically have the same experience, man, the same fulfillment. They can take those same lessons and go share with other folks. Because I would tell you, I've listened like everybody, man, that's listened to this. Everybody's seen so many YouTube videos, and, let me show you how to be successful. And there's lots of valid mastermind groups and all this other stuff. Dude, a couple of years ago, I was on the other side of all that stuff. I was just watching it going, who is that knucklehead, and how did he make so much money and I didn't? How's his adventure worth so much? And I don't even know what I'm doing. And now to be on this other side of it, and to be able to contribute back, man, I want to be able to do it in a real and meaningful and helpful way. I'm not charging people for, I don't run a master class. You just call me and I'll tell you the answer, man. I'm pretty available that way because I found, that's what I find as fulfilling for me.
Yeah. So how do they reach you? Let's talk about the name of the podcast, and then how do they connect with you beyond that? So what's the name of the podcast?
My podcast is called the Diversified Income Experiment, and I've been doing it for a couple of years. And the whole idea behind it was when I left the corporate world, one of the first things I wanted to go do, I was just kind of turned on by laundromats, man, for some reason. And I ended up building 4 of them. And as I was on my journey to go build laundromats, I found there's absolutely no information available about laundromats online. The real financials, like what's the capital cost? I mean, what does it cost to create a laundromat, and how much money can you actually make? And what's it cost to operate it? None of that stuff was online in any real way. And I said, if I can find that stuff, man, I'm just going to make it all available. I'm literally going to publish all this crap. And I wanted to build car washes, and we were building salon suites, and I built an Amazon FBA business. I started a trucking business. I bought this business, and I'm in the trash business, and I got all these things going on, man, but none of that information was available. And so there were 2 things happening where I realized, hey, people don't know. And so I'm just going to share it all. And the second thing is, people come from my background of this corporate world and are handcuffed by the money they make and just don't want to leave. And so I created this podcast. It's called the Diversified Income Experiment. I use my own money, and I go start these ventures, and some of them work out and some of them don't. And I just share all the information. Yeah, it's a great podcast. So you should definitely tune in and listen. Obviously, Keith, since he's got some experience, great guy to listen to. Great stories too, man. And you can also reach me at harry@dinkpie.com. So the Diversified Income Experiment. The website is DinkPie, DINCPIE, and my email is harry@dinkpie.com, harry@dincpie.com. And I get people from all over the world reaching out with, all kinds of fabulous stories and questions and whatnot. And, Joe, it's never, hey, tell me the detail of that financial model again. Like, I didn't follow it. It's, hey man, I am stuck in the corporate world, and I need someone to give me some direction. And I really appreciate it. Like, here's 3 questions. I just had this guy from Slovenia reach out to me by WhatsApp. I don't even know I'm on WhatsApp. And the guy reached out to me. He's like, hey, can I chat with you about something?
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, listen, man, I don't want to take too much of your time. You got a dozen businesses to be operating, and I appreciate the fact that you took time out of your day to connect with me and share your story here. Appreciate it.
Joe, and listen, man, anybody's trying to sort out their financials, reach out to Dan, because that guy can figure it out for you.
Yeah, we'll put that in the show notes. We'll put your contact information in the show notes. We'll put the podcast in the show notes as well.
Super. Great talking to you again, buddy. Be in touch.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, see you, man.